There are countless sandwiches in the world, and beyond being easily my favorite type of food, they're also portable and endlessly customizable. But today I'm making one of my go-tos, the classic meatball sub. This sandwich features a simple but incredibly delicious meatball simmered in an aromatic tomato sauce and layered with the endlessly meltable provolone and my favorite crunchy garlic. So let's jump right into the heart of this sandwich. Add a spoonful of ricotta cheese into a mixing bowl with 1 egg white, a nice pile of freshly grated parm, and a tablespoon of salt. Stir this mixture up thoroughly. This is the floor of textures and flavors that are going to make our meatball. Personally, I prefer a pure veal meatball, but veal and pork is also delicious. And if veal isn't your bag, you can use just pork or a pork and chicken combo. So I added 1 pound of ground veal meat. You want to mix this up thoroughly with your hands, but as soon as everything looks fully incorporated, stop mixing to make sure the meatballs are very tender. Then grab a palm-sized ball of the mixture and roll it between your hands to form it into a ball. And then I like to toss the meat from one hand to another to remove any gaps inside. And then lay them directly into a pan. If you've watched the channel before, you'll probably know that I love my broiler. Probably all those years I spent next to a wood-fired oven. So I'm gonna pop these right under my broiler until they're a deep golden brown. That said, if your broiler is doubling as pan storage, feel free to put them directly into a 450-degree oven until the bottoms are nicely browned. These meatballs are already delicious, and there's a texture that these meatballs have right out of the oven that is indescribably amazing. But they're about to have even more flavor when you take the leaves of an entire bunch of basil and tear them into the pan and then add a few cups of tomato puree along with a pinch of salt. This is only going to cook for about 20 minutes, and the shorter cook time, the more rewarding a high-quality tomato will be. I personally went with a can of San Marzano tomatoes from Naples, which I blended, but a tomato passata or really whatever tomato you can find will also work just fine. Bring these up to a simmer and then cook them over low heat for 20 minutes while occasionally swirling the pan. You never want to stir a meatball with any type of a tool because you'll probably break them apart. Instead, just swirl them around in the pan. And that, my friends, is a classic meatball. The flavors here are well balanced and powerful. And you can get creative with your sauces or add flavors into the meat itself, but I'm a big believer in simple, clean, but powerful components that can be layered onto, which is exactly what this sandwich is all about. You're probably looking at this and thinking, wow, I could totally do that. That looks easy, and you're right. So feel free to throw this onto a piece of bread, and I promise it will be delicious. But my preferred meatball sandwich has what is easily my favorite thing to do with garlic, which is garlic chips. Admittedly, it does take a few practice runs to nail them, but I think it's well worth the effort. Beyond being incredibly aromatic, crunchy, and delicious, they also keep for at least a few weeks if you cook them right, and you also end up with a toasted garlic oil, which honestly, need I say more? I peeled a head of garlic, but this is a great time to use the pre-peeled stuff because you're gonna cook it all right away. There's a lot to be learned from making garlic chips, but using a mandolin is almost a requirement in order to get the consistent slices that dry out enough to stay crunchy. Use your first few slices to dial in the thickness. You're looking for something around this, not paper thin, but chip-like. The first thing I threw away when I bought this mandolin was the guard, but that's not to say you should follow me on that. People have always told me that my mandolin technique can be a little bit frightening, but with some practice, you'll learn to not cut yourself. That said, I do like a glove as a layer of protection, and garlic is honestly cheap, so I would probably recommend just cutting the first half of the clove and not trying to go anywhere near your fingers. Once everything is sliced, throw these directly into a cold pan and cover them with plenty of olive oil. The way to get the most consistently crunchy garlic chips, in my experience, is to cook them over high heat while stirring the whole time. And as soon as you begin to see golden brown, pour them immediately through a strainer and then lay them onto paper towels. Making great garlic chips is just like cooking a French omelet because the window of time where it's done is only a few seconds long. But in my experience, if you can really focus while you're making these, they are not that difficult. You're left with a crunchy and delicious garlic chip as well as this beautiful toasted garlic oil, which is a great thing to have in your fridge. And yes, make sure to keep it in your refrigerator, not at room temperature. The final piece of the puzzle for any great sandwich is the bread, and depending on where you live, this can honestly be the hardest part of making a great sandwich. As someone that went to high school blocks away from some of the best Bronx-based Italian bakeries, I realize now that I was spoiled in having great sub bread. Where I currently live in Central Texas, I am genuinely astonished by the quality and availability of amazing ingredients, but great bread is harder to come by, and I have a feeling I am not alone. So despite searching for a good Italian bakery to get my favorite meatball sub sesame bread, no dice. Instead, I'm going with a baguette, which checks most of the boxes and still made a great sandwich. Cut a nice piece off and then split it almost all the way through, then brush it with garlic oil and toast it in the broiler, or with a torch in my case, face side up until it's a beautiful golden brown. Then lay on the meatballs. Do not skimp on the sauce. Throw a few slices of provolone on top and pop it back into the broiler, then tear some fresh basil leaves on, bomb it with freshly grated Parmesan, plenty of the toasted garlic, and some chili flake. I don't think I need to sell this thing too hard because just look at how delicious it looks. But anyway, that is all for me on this one. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon.